Hi, everybody. It's Tim Constantine. And for America, joining me is David Bozell. Hey, David, how are you?
Hey, Tim, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. You know, Donald Trump is the guy. Now, it's pretty clear he's the candidate for the Republican Party. And as I've watched news coverage, and the left has been very sullen about this, been very sad about this, and a little swarmy about this. And I keep hearing some version of, oh, we're going to have more. Do we want to go back to the chaos that he caused? Do we want to go back to the mess that he brought to us? And I keep thinking, you know, there's the checklist of actual political items like good economy, or, you know, you can go down an actual secure border. If you want to go item by item and set Donald Trump's personality aside, it's very difficult to argue that those 4 years were better than weren't better than the 5 years. But what I want to talk about is, did he actually bring the mess? Because I think of Russiagate, which was the first scandal right out of the blocks. They spent 2 years, $30 million. Mueller had his report. And when it all turned out, there was nothing to it except what got very little attention from the media was Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Right.
And the Democratic Party fabricated Russiagate. So when I hear Donald Trump bringing the chaos, bringing the mess, I'm thinking, wait a minute, who brought that mess? It wasn't Donald Trump.
Right. Even if you believe, let's just pretend that Donald Trump brought Russiagate. What did Russia do? They spent a couple $1,000s on a couple Facebook ads. That was the alpha and the omega of Russians' election interference. And that's within the Mueller report. You know, yes, they bought some ads on social media. Whoop-de-doo. But all of that, all of the whole narrative, all generated by Robbie Mook, campaign manager at the Hillary Clinton campaign. All of it. So right there, the anvil around the first Trump administration, the idea that an American enemy, as painted by the press, Russia, basically installed Donald Trump into office, was a total fabrication. And all of the news, all-consuming news saturation was a myth. And what an indictment, Tim.
And the instant the Mueller report came out and they realized there's nothing there.
Oops.
I think the Adam Schiffs of the world knew that ahead of time, but there's nothing there after all. But what happened was immediately there is the Ukraine investigation. He had a conversation with the president of Ukraine and tried to twist his arm, tried to influence him. We're told this not by someone who was on the call. And for people who don't know, there are usually 15, 18 people on any phone call like that. There are people taking notes. There are people doing it for history. There are people doing it for security. There's a pile of people. It's not just Zelensky and the president, our president. But the gentleman who filed the complaint, the whistleblower, wasn't even on the phone call. A couple guys who talked to him, they later took jobs with Adam Schiff, I might point out, but they talked to him. He was a puppet, in my opinion, of John Brennan, the old intelligence guy. But this story took on such a life of its own that Donald Trump was impeached by a Democrat House over it. And again, did Donald Trump bring that? It turned out there was nothing to it. Even the president of Ukraine said, I didn't feel like he was trying to influence me. I didn't feel like he was twisting my arm. But the Democrats wanted to tell that story. So when we talk about the chaos, when we talk about bringing the mess, who brought the mess? Because it wasn't Donald Trump.
When you're the CEO, let's suggest that the United States of America is the largest corporation in the world. When you're the CEO of the largest corporation in the world with 3 million executive branch employees, one of the things I think that Donald Trump realized fairly quickly, and every president I think realizes this, there's always somebody in your administration that's going to be out to get you. There's always somebody within the 3 million that's doing something stupid and doing something wrong. And in the case of Admiral Vindman, upset that he wasn't on the call, or just upset at the general direction of U.S. policy towards Ukraine, or just didn't like his boss, whatever the motivation, he's able to generate a nationwide scandal and subsequent impeachment hearings because two leaders had a phone call about potential U.S. aid going to a country that was corrupt. And as Donald Trump suggested, he says it's perfect, but it was whether we want to call it perfect or not, it was 1,000% benign. And what an indictment! We spoke about Russia earlier, but also this Ukraine controversy. What an indictment on the liberal press writ large to fall into the trap of believing a guy like Vindman, who had an obvious axe to grind.
Right.
And just to sow the seeds of just discord and of chaos and dividing the country. It's the press that's dividing the country.
Well, Adam Schiff helped him fill out his complaint, for goodness sake. If that didn't make it obvious, you have the sworn enemy of Donald Trump helping this guy fill out his anonymous, his whistleblower complaint. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. Now, you tell me, is this coincidence? Is this irony? What is it that, much as in the other item we mentioned, where it was actually Hillary Clinton, his political opponent, who had crafted the whole Russiagate story, in the Ukraine story, we have, as it turns out, now President Biden, when he was vice president, really did try to twist the arm of Ukraine.
Right. Where's the evidence, Tim?
Well, other than him saying it publicly,
other than videotape of him saying, the press will say, "Where's the evidence?" That is really the difference between how the press covers Trump versus Biden, right? With Trump's concerned, he's guilty until proven innocent. Where Biden's concerned, nothing happened.
Right.
Okay. Of course he would talk to his son. Of course he would talk to his son about his businesses. Of course he would talk to his son's business partners. I mean, the story keeps changing, and deflections and defense of the president keep getting stronger and stronger. But this is why these guys' ratings are in the total tank. The press's ratings. This is why MSNBC generates more eyeballs to see if they don't cover Trump, and then everybody sort of they just want to peek in. Like, are you going to cover the Trump speech? Oh, you're not? It's just a Rachel Maddow read? Okay, I'm out. And then people turn the TVs off. I mean, it's just a total terrible indictment on the liberal press out to get this man. Understand, like, the guy's unconventional, right? And he used Twitter with weapons grade precision, and he riled them, and he leaked things where he thought it was beneficial to him. But they were out to get him from day one.
That's never happened before in politics, by the way.
Right.
Well, and then let's just wrap it up by talking January 6th, the riot of January 6th. I refuse to call it an insurrection. It was not an organized effort to take over the government. It was a riot. It's embarrassing. It's shameful. It shouldn't have happened, but it was not an insurrection. And the question, A, was it insurrection? No. B, did Donald Trump cause it? No. If you go back and look at his speech that day, and I have not only watched it, but I've gone back and read the transcript multiple times, trying to see, is there a dog whistle there? Which I have been unable to identify. More importantly, he talks about peacefully and patriotically protest. He's not talking about going and taking over the government. So I discount that. I do think Trump could have spoken up once the riot started. He could have spoken up immediately and said, hey, he's got the bully pulpit. Stop, go home, please stop. If you think you're doing the right thing, you're not, please stop. That was his mistake. But I want to go to the other riots that happened for 18 months during his presidency, and that was the BLM movement and the Antifa movement, which oddly somehow kind of coalesced. But out in the federal building, out in the Pacific Northwest, where for literally 100 nights they would try to firebomb the building. And things like that were not chaos brought by Trump nor the Trump administration. That was brought by BLM or by the anti-fascist group, who ironically were claiming Trump was trying to be a fascist while they were using fascist methods of trying to firebomb and force people into things.
Right. Yeah. Look, recently, you had thousands of pro-Gaza protesters on the White House lawn scaling the White House fence. Can you remember a single national reporter, talking head from the left, or anywhere, demanding that Joe Biden get on national television to tell his supporters to stand down?
Right.
Has that demand been made of him? Because of his sort of, I would consider, lukewarm, tepid support of Israel, which has generated an anti-Israeli sentiment in the United States, that plus TikTok. The fact that Biden's been absentee since October 7th, since the Israeli attacks. Has any national spokesman suggested that there's any culpability at the feet of the president, the current president, for folks trying to attempt to scale the White House fence? And essentially, what would they have done if they got there? And it's not just the White House. I mean, they're in the Capitol every day.
Right.
They're disrupting hearings every day. They're in the Senate well every day. They're in the Durbin building. The Marble building is the one they can get into the easiest. They're in there every day protesting against Israel. Nobody is suggesting that Biden should take a stronger stance because they don't want, not because they don't think that Biden should take a stronger stance. They don't want to draw any attention to folks on the left making their voice heard against their president. But they want to draw attention to folks on the right voicing their displeasure with the 2020 race. Look, I love what Trump said the other day. The best retribution is success. I think that is a bumper sticker line that he needs to hammer home for the rest of this campaign. And I think that's going to be a real winner. And so if we can accomplish that on the Republican side, hopefully a lot of this stuff goes away, and we get to prove that it was the Democrats causing this chaos the entire time.
Final note, and that is, we talked about Russia and how that story was actually crafted by the Democrats. We talked about the whistleblower and how that was actually crafted by his opponents. We talked about the fascists, the Antifa people claiming Trump was a fascist while acting like fascists. So my question then, before we go, is there's a whole chunk, the buzzword, the line that all the left is using right now is Trump, if reelected, will become a dictator. Because they have actually done everything they have warned us about with Trump turns out to be what they're doing. Should I worry that Joe Biden and the Democrats have a secret plan to just permanently install themselves?
Wow, those are some rabbit holes. But yeah, I mean, look at what's going on in the southern border, Tim. I mean, what can you call that other than replacement? But we're negotiating. The Senate's negotiating this immigration bill, and we're going to cap illegal immigrants by the day at 5,000. And to what end? They're going to try to register these people. And if not register, they're just going to try to get folks to write in their votes. And who at these state levels is equipped to deal with the massive influx of that kind of mail-in voting quantity? I don't think states are prepared. That would be the way, right? It's just sort of unverifiable mail-in vote quantity. That would be the way to just sort of install yourself. And so that's the kind of thing that the Trump campaign and everybody, the Republican Party, the conservative movement, everybody needs to rally behind the nominee and preach and work as hard as they possibly can in ensuring the integrity of this race.
For America, he is Dave Bozell. I'm Tim Constantine from the Washington Times. Thanks for joining us.